and welcome to Animating Toronto Parks information session. I am very sorry about the delay that we experienced due to some technical issues, because that's the world we live in now, but hopefully next year we meet in person for a similar information session. Before we begin with our information on this program, I'd like to let everybody know that we have ASL interpretation that is available for the entirety of the session to the right of your screen. And you also can turn on closed captioning by selecting the CC icon to the bottom right of your screen. If you cannot see or access either of this, please do let us know in the chat. Chat should be working and available for you to message. Again, if that's not the case, please let us know. There is a Q&A chat, which is a separate chat, but you can flag any issues there if you like or need. And now that I'm talking about the chat boxes, Q&A box is specific for all your questions that you're very welcome to put in the chat as they come to mind, and we will be taking them throughout the session, as well as, you know, there will be a Q&A session after the presentation. And then you have a chat box, which is more for socializing, saying hello, and so on. So feel free to use either. Sorry, I actually never even introduced myself, and I was about to introduce the co-hosts and co-presenters. So sorry about that. My name is Lena, and I'm a fairly new strategic programs manager at Toronto Arts Council, and I manage Animating Toronto Parks program, among other programs at the moment. Toronto Arts Council acknowledges the diversity of the First Peoples of this area and recognizes the territories of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Sorry, Lena, can you read those names a little slower, please?
For sure. Apologies.
From the Wendat, thank you.
Toronto Arts Council acknowledges the diversity of the First Peoples of this area and recognizes the territories of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, Toronto is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island and around the world, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work, live, and meet on this territory. Today, we are here to talk about Animating Toronto Parks program. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. So we're talking about Animating Toronto Parks program, and this is a grants program managed by Toronto Arts Council, and this program is in partnership with Arts in the Parks initiative that is managed by Toronto Arts Foundation, as well as Park People, City of Toronto Park, Forestry and Recreation, and Black Creek Community Farm. And representatives of all these wonderful partners are here with me today to talk to you about the program and how they take part in the program. So to begin, just simply, what is Animating Toronto Parks? So first of all, this is a funding program as opposed to Arts in the Parks. Oftentimes I receive emails asking me about how to apply for Arts in the Parks program. And I understand where the question is coming from, but I manage the Animating Toronto Parks program, and that's the granting, the funding program by the Toronto Arts Council. And in this program, you can apply to receive grants of up to $25,000 to do free arts programming in any artistic discipline in selected Toronto parks. So the projects in this program can occur in the parks that are pre-selected by the program team, and all of them are located in Etobicoke, North York, Scarborough, East York, and York. You will not find a single park in this program that is in downtown core. And right now on the screen, you can see the map of the participating parks. And you can see how the geography is really, really widespread, but everything is like all the locations that are outside of the downtown core. And that's part of the kind of the nature of this program, to really bring the arts to the communities outside of downtown core. So as mentioned, this program is in partnership with Toronto Arts Foundation, Parks, Forestry and Recreation, Black Creek Community Farm, and Park People. And Arts in the Parks as the initiative that the successful grant applicant will then become part of, and this initiative is a key part of the grants program. The grants program, again, what does it offer? The funding, of course, it's up to $25,000, but you can apply for less amount, and it can fund up to 100% of your project cost, but you are also very welcome to have other sources of funding. And then the successful applicants will receive in-kind support from Arts in the Parks, community collaboration and partnership support from Park People, support with navigating park permitting and free park permits from Parks, Forestry and Recreation, as well as access to space and staff support at Black Creek Community Farm, if that's the location that you're applying to do the projects at. And TAC will also cover general liability insurance for the events that take place as part of this program. And before I get into further details about the grant program and how to apply, well, first of all, I'd like to back up a little bit and let everybody know what this session is and is not. So the program didn't really change since last year. Animating Toronto Parks is a fairly new strategic program, and it did undergo several changes. This year, there is nothing new. It's the same grant amount. It's all the same about the program except for the park list, which changes every year slightly. So why I'm saying this is that, you know, if you attended the info session last year, or if you participated in the program last year, you're likely not going to really learn much new in this info session, except you're going to meet a couple new people. You know, myself, I'm a new staff at TC, and we have a new staff at Parks, Forestry and Recreation and Black Creek Community Farm. So to meet new people, yes. To gather super fresh new information about the program, probably not. Also, this is a session to give everybody an idea about, you know, what the nature and the structure of this program is. What are all the key players? You know, how, you know, the grants program fit into Arts in the Parks program and vice versa. So to really understand what kind of projects are supported through this program and what would be a good fit, this is the session for that. I will be hosting separate sessions that will be much more informal, that will be also online, and that will be specifically to talk about the application process, about the TC Grants Online portal, and all the details of actual application. I will touch a little bit on that today, but mostly for that information, there will be different time, and I will share the link for you to register for that if you're interested. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Jacqueline to talk about arts in the parks. Over to you, Jacqueline.
Great, thank you so much, Lena. Just confirming, am I sharing my screen or can we flip over? There we go, wonderful. Hi, everyone. My name is Jacqueline, and I work for Toronto Arts Foundation, which is the affiliate organization to Toronto Arts Council, for those of you who don't know. And we are responsible for the Arts in the Parks initiative. We're actually as Lena mentioned, Animating Toronto Parks, the grant program, has multiple partners, Toronto Arts Foundation being one of them. And on this Arts in the Parks initiative, we would say that Toronto Arts Council is a partner, and we are technically the lead partner as part of Arts in the Parks. And so I'm going to dive right into it. For those of you who are joining us and have participated in the program in the past, welcome back. For those of you who are new, welcome here today. I'm really excited to tell you about what we do to help support. I think Lena has alluded to this a little bit and spoken about it a little bit, and possibly to many of you, but what makes this grant program very unique is the support that is offered by Toronto Arts Foundation. There's not many other grant programs that the council offers that are in partnership with Toronto Arts Foundation where this kind of support is offered. So that's why I'm here today, to tell you a little bit about what we can do for you if you're a successful grant applicant. And I'm also joined here, as Lena said, too, by our partners, Park People, and I know we're going to see a video later from our friends at the City of Toronto. So let's go over to the next slide and get started. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so Arts in the Parks is a free annual outdoor program that brings arts events to parks and neighborhoods across Toronto. And of course, when we say it brings events to neighborhoods across Toronto, we're not bringing them. You, the artists or arts organization, are bringing them. We're just there to support. And our real main objective is to help support both artists, arts organization, and community by generating awareness about the events happening in their local parks. And so we do that through a variety of outreach techniques, a marketing campaign, and then we also visit a variety of the events throughout the season to do some on-site promotion and also evaluation of the program. And each year that evaluation helps us improve for the next year. Lena already explained a number of the partners. You can see them there: City of Toronto, Parks, Forestry and Recreation, Park People, who we'll hear from a bit later, Rise Edutainment, Toronto Arts Council, obviously the grant program, and ourselves. But the most important partner is you. We're here to support you in your events. And so all of this is impossible, of course, without our wonderful artists and arts organizations who are actually, producing the events and activities happening in the parks. Next slide, please. So Toronto Arts Foundation, our objectives with Arts in the Parks is really to build community. It's really about connecting residents across the city to their local park spaces and to each other. And I hope that we can all agree over the past couple of years that we've had that this kind of community connectedness and feeling engaged in local community is of utmost importance. And so we really love events that really are brought to the table with community in mind. And though that being said, this is not, you know, and I'm sure Lena can speak to this too, this is not a community arts grant program. This is not a community arts initiative from Toronto Arts Foundation's perspective. Events can include everything: dance, theater, music. We've had film screenings in the past. We've had literary events, and of course, yes, community engaged work as well. But when I say community engagement and community building, you know, very much from our perspective and really focused on trying to get local residents out, get them activated in their park spaces, and encourage them to, you know, participate and care about the arts in their community. And I think it's really important here to also just take a quick step back. This initiative was founded in partnership at the same time as the grant program was in 2015, and with the first season happening in 2016. And the reason that both the council and foundation partnered on this initiative was as a result of research work that was done. Many folks might remember our arts stats and our arts facts, and out of those public opinion surveys, what we found was that even though like I think it's something over 90% of Torontonians believe in the power of the arts and how important they are and the value of them, it's something like 9 out of 10 cite a barrier to participating in arts activities. And the 2 largest barriers that were cited were cost and like geographical barriers. So not having activities close to them. And so Arts in the Parks, and through this grant program, really like seeks to remove those barriers, or as many of those barriers as possible. So that's why this program is free. And actually anybody, so whether or not you're a successful grant applicant with Animating Toronto Parks or not, if you still decide to move ahead, if you secure other sources of funding, Arts in the Parks, from the foundation's perspective, can still support you as part of our marketing campaign, as long as your event is free, you know, family friendly, and in a City of Toronto park proper. So that's just something to keep in mind, that, you know, if you apply to this program, you're not successful, or you decide this program is not for me, I actually want to do an event in a downtown park, then you know, still reach out to myself and my colleagues. Our information will be made available at the end of my section of this presentation, and we can still find ways to support you with in-kind marketing and things like that. So that's this last bullet point here, just talking about how, you know, not only are Animating Toronto Park grant recipients going to be represented as part of our Arts in the Parks 2023 season, but other events will join that as well. Next slide. So here we talk a little bit about our marketing promotion, and on the next slide, we'll just have a few examples. But we work with a number of media partners that the foundation secures, including Toronto Star, Star Metroland Media, to do a number of both print and digital marketing pieces. So we have had in the past, we've had ads in newspapers, we have flyers that we create and print out and distribute. We create a citywide brochure. We've had billboards at Yonge Dundas Square to promote the initiative. We do pay for social media marketing through some of our media partners as well. And so all of this advertising is put together to really promote the initiative as a whole, and then with some additional pieces, more grassroots, to promote the individual events. And so why don't we flip to the next slide right now, so just we can see an example of what that looks like. So this is an example of not Arts in the Parks, but some ways that the foundation has promoted our work in the past. This was a new media partnership with our friends over at ADAP Media, and these ads appeared in...
Sorry, this is the interpreter, Latasha. You're going a little bit fast.
Yep.
This was promotion from Toronto Arts Foundation. Can you start from there?
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. So this is promotion for Toronto Arts Foundation as a whole, not specific to Arts in the Parks, but an example of how we utilize our media partners to showcase the work that we're doing. This was a partnership with ADAP Media, and these ads appeared in convenience stores' digital screens. I think there's about 250 of them located around the city. So this is an example of that. Maybe we'll go to the next slide. Here's an example of some more targeted marketing and promotional tactics that we use for Arts in the Parks. So although it's a bit of a blurry picture on the right, this was the front of our 2022 guide. It's quite large, folded out. It's the size of a standard newspaper. And this guide is inserted into Star Metroland media newspapers around all the parks that are selected as part of Animating Toronto Parks. So we distribute about, oh goodness, I forget now. I think in the past, we ordered upwards of 200,000 of these brochures. Some in go to newspapers. Our staff distributes them door to door in residential neighborhoods around the park communities. We've gone to do some other additional outreach activities, farmers markets, etc., to distribute these. Sometimes they go to the public libraries, community centers. So those are examples. And so anybody's event can be listed in this brochure. On the left is an example of a poster for an event specific poster that we created to promote an Arts in the Parks event. So we do lots of marketing. None of our activities are to stop you from doing your own marketing and promotion as well. The more, the better. Thank you so much. Here's a very quick example of a digital takeover for our season launch event that takes place every June. Go to the next slide. And I spoke about being on site at events. So at a number of events, our staff will show up and we will work that out together with you, what dates make the most sense, both on staff and volunteer availability, as well as what makes sense for your performance schedules or activity schedules. We have a number of, this is wayfinding, signage, on-site visibility. We also see this as marketing. We also have a number of these materials that we can lend out if our staff can't make it. But you'd like to take pieces like this, you can arrange to borrow them from us at no cost, unless you damage them. Joining our staff is our team of volunteers. So over the past, since 2016, we've recruited over 350 event volunteers, ages 14 and up, to support, your audience members coming in, welcoming them, greeting your audience members and participants. It's important here for me to say that our volunteers are not there to help set up sound equipment and tear down stages. And the reason for that is that all of your events are so unique that we can't possibly train our volunteers effectively on how to do that, nor be liable for any injury that's as a result of carrying heavy sound equipment. And so our volunteers are really there to act as ambassadors for the initiative. They can hand out any program materials you have. If you have additional flyers, they can canvass the park leading up to your event. We arrive an hour before your event's going to take place, so we can, do a little bit of last minute outreach the hour preceding the event. But they're a wonderful group. They're really dedicated. We see the same faces over and over again, and they love working on this program. So it's just a really wonderful thing to have. And we also see it as an extension of community engagement and getting, volunteers involved in their local community. Next slide. Sorry for the siren. So I'm not going to talk too much about community outreach in this slide. I'll leave it to you folks to take a quick look here, and that's because I do have my pal Cindy, who's joined us from Park People here. But it's just to say that the foundation partners every year with our community partner Park People, and Park People has done an incredible job in building capacity for local volunteers and community groups in a number of the parks that will be selected to be animated through this program. And by way of Park People, we will connect you to these community groups. Now, not every park has a community group. We're close. So that's something to note, but they're going to help you get the word out about the events happening in their local community. Next slide. I've already mentioned this just with our marketing materials. So we take our marketing materials that we've created. We have a complete outreach campaign, I'm so sorry, an outreach plan where we will be visiting each community at least once, if not more, leading up to events to get the word out. Next slide. So this is kind of the end of my presentation here, and it's important for me to just say, and circle back to the beginning where I mentioned, this is a very unique grant program in that Arts in the Parks and the foundation and staff are involved. If you're a successful grant applicant, you will hear from me and my team throughout the lead up to the summer, throughout the summer, after your event. And so it's a real partnership. For those of you who have received another Toronto Arts Council grant before and not this one, typically you might receive your grant, you go off and do your activity, you fill out a final report, and it's kind of done. In this program, that's not. You're going to get a lot of emails from us. We're going to be asking you what's going on this day. We're going to need a commitment of follow-up, especially if we're sending staff, because we would hate to, for example, send staff to your event and all of a sudden you've changed the date on us, right? And vice versa. We have very open communication with you, if we're sending staff and volunteers, if we can't send staff and volunteers, if we don't have correct details or information, you'll be hearing from us. So at the end of the day, this is really, again, and why I mentioned that this is a partnership that involves you. It's really a reciprocal relationship, in that we're trying to work together to support you and support community coming together. And so just really that open communication is just really important. And we like to stress that so that anybody who receives this grant knows kind of what they're getting into. And that's it. So I will put this contact information into the chat, or actually rather, I'm going to ask my colleague, Alexandra, to do that, who's listening in right now and who is wholly and solely responsible for putting together this wonderful PowerPoint presentation. So thank you, Alexandra, for that. And that's it. I do see a couple questions, or I have a question here just from Yang. So I'm just going to, Yang, we'll have our information in the chat here of how to contact us. So why don't you reach out to us via email, and we can send you a full listing of what items can be borrowed. But a real quick overview are tents, wayfinding signage, tables, chairs, pieces like that, and subject to availability depending on who comes to us, first come, first serve.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jacqueline. That was great. I am actually going to put, I am putting a link right now, if I can only change it for, okay, panelists and attendees. Okay, so this is the link with not just Toronto Arts Foundation contacts, but all the contacts, including Arts in the Parks team. Because it was quite a bit of links and contacts, I just put it all in a Google Doc, so you can, you don't need to be logged in or anything. You should just be able to access all the links. And we will also include all these links and contacts into the follow-up email that everybody who registered for this session will receive after the session. Maybe not immediately, but in a day or two you will receive that. And now I am going to turn it over to Cindy from Park People. Over to you, Cindy.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy. I work at Park People. I'm the project manager at Park People. So for those who haven't heard of us, I'll let you know a little bit about Park People. So Park People works with others to advance city parks as an essential spaces to connect people to each other and the rest of nature. Vibrant parks feel magical, but they don't happen by magic. It takes dedicated people to make parks vibrant people places. Park People supports grassroots community groups, volunteers to help them activate the parks and improve quality of life in cities across Canada. My role with the Arts in the Park program is to work with the Toronto Arts Foundation to connect community park groups with the Arts in the Park program and the artists to make sure they feel well supported. Community organizers know their neighborhood parks and how the local community uses them. They know what assets the community has, and they understand the barriers residents face. We have seen differences between when artists and community groups work well together when a more successful event takes place. Some of the roles the community groups play are they can share content and background of community and physical sites where events are supposed to take place through a stakeholder meeting or communication with artists, the Toronto's Art Foundation, and park people. They can also liaison with stakeholders, such as the Arts in the Park staff, park people, and the artists, as required to ensure the implement and success of a project. They also can support with promoting the event with the community and volunteer outreach and attending the day of the event to welcome people to the community. Park People's role with the artists will start with the community organizers after the Animating Park grants are selected. So I thank you for listening, and I hope to meet you in 2023.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Yeah, that was great. And to second what Jacqueline said about the program, the community engagement and consultation with community is really key here. And you may have noticed when you were looking at the parks description that for certain parks, there is even, the community groups are listed. And for certain parks, we say that, you're asked to please work with the local groups to make your project a success. And Cindy and Park People really is an invaluable partner to make that happen. So thank you, Cindy. And I really hope that everybody who is considering applying for Animating Toronto Parks is open and excited to be working with you and the local groups on the projects. And I'm actually going to turn over back to my slides. So now we are going back to grants program and the regular information that is part of it is pretty standard for TSC programs, and some of it is different because it's a kind of a unique, it's a unique strategic program with many partners. And one of actually interesting aspects of this program is that it's one of the few Toronto Arts Council programs that is open for applications from individuals, collectives, arts organizations, and even non-arts-based nonprofit organizations, in which case they would need, of course, to work with professional artists and be paying artist fees, and there should be artistic leadership on the project, but it's a really broad open, and we invite everybody to consider applying, whether it's an individual or an organization. And the question, of course, is who is considered a professional artist? And the answer is really, do you consider yourself a professional artist? Are you a professional artist in your opinion? If so, then likely you are eligible to apply for this program, because TC approaches the question of eligibility in a very flexible manner, especially when it comes to this program where, it's not so much about, what you've done in the past, even though that matters for your support material and application, but it's more about what is your idea? Does it fit the site? Does it fit the park? Do you engage the community? Are you open to be working with all the partners? And that can make your application a success, even if you don't have a huge artistic resume. Another question of eligibility, of course, is, how many other grants you already have from TEC. As I said, and as many of you know, Animating Toronto Parks is one of the strategic programs at the Arts Council, and that's one of the funding envelopes, another being arts discipline. And that includes project and operating grants in discipline-based programs such as dance, theater, literary arts, visual and media arts, and so on. And so in each of these two envelopes, you can only hold one grant in each year. To be eligible to apply for a new grant, you have to have all the final reports submitted in the strategic program. In art discipline-based programs, you can still have an active project as long as the final report is not overdue. However, there are several exceptions from this rule, and there are programs that do not count toward this one program per year limit. And these programs are TEC Leaders Lab, Newcomer and Refugee Artist Mentorship, TEC CS Digital Solutions Incubator, Black Arts, Indigenous Arts. So that is not part of this count. So you can apply for those one of those programs and for Animating Toronto Parks in the same year. And now, what kind of projects are eligible? Jacqueline was talking a little bit about how, it's not community arts program. However, many of the successful projects do have element of community engagement. And that's always welcome. It's not a requirement as long as, you consider the local community and local environment. But to answer, the question about eligibility, really any project can be eligible, or any activity, any kind of activity can be eligible and can be successful in this program, as long as it takes into account those, realities of the site and the community. And that, can include any artistic discipline, music, theater, visual arts, community engaged arts, really anything you can think of, as long as the activity is free and open to the public. And I should mention activities that the program does not support. And those are permanent installations, definitely not. The parks need to be left in the state you found them, nothing behind, including artworks. The program doesn't support capital costs related to equipment purchase, activities taking place outside of the city of Toronto, ongoing organizational operating costs that are not related to the project, and commercial or for-profit events that require a ticket or collect donations. And these are just some images to give you an idea of what kind of projects get funded through this program, or are a success. So these are events in spoken word and music, in theater and community engaged theater, again, music and music workshops, theater, more theater, and dance. But these are just the images, that I put. Really, all disciplines are very, very welcome. And you can read, we'll share the presentation and you can read about this, who these participants are. There's all images from this past summer that was really busy and really, really amazing. And now I'd like to talk about various accessibility options that TAC offers. So first of all, there is TAC accessibility grant that is offered to applicants or projects involving deaf artists and artists with disability and mental illness. And that is a grant of additional, or sorry, this is an additional grant of up to $5,000 toward access supports for the artists working on the project. And this, these accessibility costs can include such things as ASL interpretation, audio description, closed captioning, personal support workers, equipment rental. It's important to note that these are the supports that are provided or that will be required for the artists working on the project. And to apply for this grant, you would just complete the accessibility expenses section of the application and include the information in the budget. We do welcome accessibility budget or like accessibility consideration in your budget to accommodate the public. That is very much encouraged. However, that will not be part of this TEC accessibility grant, and that would come out of your main grant amount. Whereas, the supports for the artists are additional up to 5,000 on top of your requested grant amount. And please, we can talk about it more if this is not clear in Q&A session as well. We also offer application accessibility support, which again is available for the applicants who are deaf or have a disability. And this is up to $500 per year, per applicant per year. And this is offered specifically to support you through an application process to hire a support service provider that will be paid directly by TEC if this request is approved. And to obtain this approval, just please reach out to me as soon as possible. We say in the links that I shared, I did share also a page that explains the process around application accessibility support on our website. We do say there, please reach out 6 weeks in advance of application. If you missed that timeline, still please do reach out. And last thing on accessibility, we do have, so in your application, you will notice that there is access plan field that you're asked to fill out when you're, when you're filling out your application. And this is relatively new field for this program, and this is not a field that is included in all TEC applications. So this is for you to think and share how you are planning to accommodate members of audience with disabilities. And, you are not necessarily required to take it on you to, provide all the accessibility supports, understanding that your, budget and your capacity is limited. However, the budget of this grant is designed in such a way, or like I should say, amount is designed in such a way as to encourage you to consider access for the public and to provide it as much as possible when you can. And we do have a list of external resources available to you on our website to really point you into the right direction to start thinking about access plan if you're not too familiar with this topic. The link is in the slide, but the link is also in the document that I shared previously with all the useful links. So please have a look and please let me know afterwards if you have any questions. Okay, this is a big slide. How do I apply? And as I said, I will be very happy to walk you through the detailed process in our office hour sessions later this month and in November. There will be three or four dates that I'm offering this. So please sign up if you're not familiar. But very basic things, read the guidelines. It's quite a big document, but there's some useful information there. Much of it is shared in this info session, actually. So you can use the info session, the video, or the document, depending on what works best for you. Please get familiar with the park's descriptions, decide on the location. You can apply to do your project in one park, or you can do your project in several parks throughout the summer. It is best if you come to this program already knowing the park you want to be working in, right? And of course, the community that you're planning to work in, if you have a connection, if you are from that community, or if you've done work there, that just makes for a strong application. It also makes things easier for you. But sometimes, and we did have a question in the chat, what if the park I want to be working in is not on the list? Well, unfortunately, you can only apply for this grant to do projects in this parks. And then, if you have some park in mind, then maybe look at the map and look if there is a park that's nearby. And maybe that would work well for you, and you will still be able to utilize the same connection with the local partners or the community. And then, of course, you log in on TSC Smart Simple account. You create an account if you don't have it yet. You read through the grant application carefully. It's important to really start early, just so that you can see what's there, right? What is being asked of you. Because some things you need some time to really obtain that. For example, we're asking you to include bios and CVs of your key collaborators. And we also ask you that these people know that you're including them on your application. So that sometimes takes time. So just look what's needed and prioritize what needs to be done sooner, because it takes more time. And some other things are easy, so you can do it a bit later. However, I strongly recommend not to leave the application to the last minute. Technology is imperfect, so submit an application, half an hour before midnight is stressful. Just don't do that if you can. If you're a first-time applicant, please reach out to me if you have any questions about your eligibility or any questions at all. Also, please feel free to reach out. I do encourage you to attend maybe the office hours if you have questions specific to the application process before you, call me. But if you prefer to call, please do. And yes, submit your application before the deadline, which is on Monday, December 5th, and it's 11:59 p.m. on that date. So please submit by then. How will my application be assessed? The applications are being, or I should say funding is being awarded on a competitive basis according to availability by a multidisciplinary grant review panel. That's a process that's standard for Toronto Arts Council across our programs. But important thing to keep in mind when you're applying for Animating Toronto Parks program is that the panel that will be reading through your application and assessing it is multidisciplinary, right? We work to represent the diversity of the applicants in the particular pool of applications. That includes, different disciplines. So when you write about something that's let's say, very specific to music, right? It's something that in a music discipline-based application, you would not need to explain maybe. Here, it's best if you assume that the reader doesn't know your field at all or very much, right? So making it really clear for anybody who reads what it is that you're planning to do, how it relates to the site, how it relates to your overall practice. So those are the things to keep in mind. So grant review panel makes decision about the funding allocation, but program partners also contribute with the context to that process, as well as to parks allocation. When you apply, you are asked to make your parks choice, but you are also asked to make your second choice and third choice. And that is because we're trying to really serve communities as much as possible broadly throughout those areas and throughout those parks that are eligible. So if everybody applies to the same park, well, that's probably not going to happen. And that those applications will be reallocated between parks in the same geographic area. So having those second and third choices will be really helpful for that work. And I mentioned that, you know, you don't have to live in the immediate vicinity of the park, but it's good to have the connection. And it's not a formal requirement. It's just really better for the work, right? To have that good why of why you want to put a project in a particular park. And generally speaking, what is it that drives you to make project in the park, right? Because, you know, it's something that can be very exciting, but it's also a challenge. And I think the challenge is better kind of tackled or overcame if you have the good reason of why, and making that reason really clear to the reader, to the grant review panel is really, really important here. So the applications are assessed according to the following criteria: artistic merit, demonstrated capacity of the applicant to carry out the project, financial viability of the project, extent to which the proposed project will engage and include local communities, and quality of experience the proposed activity will provide to local community. I should also add that, you know, we talk about quality of experience and the way in which the project will engage and include local communities. Note how we don't really talk about scale. So proposing that something that's more like small scale, but is really meaningful and really engaging is just as welcome as proposing something that's, you know, oh, our concert will attract whatever 1,000 people every weekend. That's amazing too, but it's not, you know, the kind of like whatever works and what has meaning and value for you in relation to that community engagement is what matters. So small scale, bigger scale, it's all great and encouraged and very welcome here. There was a question in the chat that I missed at that point. And I did want to actually ask that the questions, if you can please put them in Q&A other than general chat so that we don't miss them. But there was a question about timing, and this is I hope the answer to that. So the application deadline is on December 5th. The notification will go out approximately 3 months after. That will be very late February or very early March. And then we will have program orientation for the grant recipients in March 2023, as Jacqueline mentioned, with all the partners and the Arts in the Parks team, of course. So the question that was in the chat is when the project can happen. So the Arts in the Parks program runs from June to September 2023. It's best, to fully take advantage of the supports that are offered that Jacqueline went over, to really have your project take place within that time frame, because this is when Arts in the Parks team have the volunteers and have staff capacity, and this is where you will really be, spotlighted and supported in terms of marketing and promotion. In terms of just strictly speaking grant requirement, projects can start no earlier than April 2023. And they must be completed within 2 years. So ideally, it's June to September 2023, but in certain circumstances, you still have 2 years from your notification letter to complete the project. And this is it for me for now. I think my link with my links, it's true though, the link to a document with the links, I think it went up. So if it's difficult to find, I will actually put it in the chat again in a minute. And again, don't worry, we'll copy that, or we'll reiterate that in the communication following the session. Right now, I would like to turn it over to our amazing partner, Black Creek Community Farm, to Ohima, please. And I'm going to stop share my screen to let you share yours.
Awesome, thank you. Just give me a moment while I also share my screen.
Of course, take your
And let me know if you can see the presentation.
We can see the screen. Yeah.
Okay, great, awesome. So thank you for inviting us today. My name is Ohima. I'm the executive director at Black Creek Community Farm. And today I just really wanted to highlight the work that we've been doing at the farm, and hopefully you're able to see, for those who are interested in doing their partnering with us, see how your vision can also fit in line with what's going on at the farm as well. So as you can see, reimagining urban agricultural spaces with art. So here is just a little visual of the farm. We recently was interviewed by the Maryland Dentist Show, and when they came to visit, they did a view of the farm, and were able to get aerial views of the farm. So really, Black Creek Community Farm is an 8-acre farm in the heart of Jane and Finch neighborhood. It houses chickens, really fluffy chickens, an outdoor classroom, a pavilion, an outdoor.
I think we lost your sound, Ohima.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, my apologies. I think my internet is unstable. But as I was saying, there's a lot of different amenities at the farm, and we really want to model what sustainable urban agriculture looks like. And that includes our food forests, our pollinator gardens, our medicinal plants, that has medicinal plants and native plants, and community garden plot. So we are a nonprofit organization and a leader in urban agriculture and the community food sector. Here is a visual of the farm, a map. And like from here, you'll be able to see the different growing spaces that we have, as well as the different community garden or educational garden plots that we have, as well as just around the garden, you will see the East Food Trail system and South Food Trail system, and then the West. It circles around the farm as a way for people to take self-guided tours. Everything in there is meant to keep the natural ecosystem of the forest, as well as have different medicinal native plant species that helps that biodiversity. As I mentioned before, it's so important for us to have the community involved in learning the importance of learning how to grow their own food, different plants and their uses, and what sustainable urban agricultural looks like. Our mission is to have a thriving farm, provide healthy food options, hands-on training, and learning experiences as a way to serve and enrich our community. But most importantly, to inspire the younger generation to provide opportunities for leadership and food justice, stewardship in the diverse natural and social ecosystems. Are you able to still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Okay. So one of the spaces that we have at the farm is our greenhouse. It's currently used as a 3-season greenhouse. Our goal is to eventually for it to be a 4-season, but it is used throughout the year, lightly heated. And currently we're growing spinach in the greenhouse, but this is a visual for you to see one of the spaces at the farm. We also have a wigwam that is a semi-permanent structure with a wooden frame. It's open to the public to learn and to use, and really to learn about Indigenous culture, to meditate, to participate in the ceremonies that we have throughout the year, to give thanks and more. We also have a fire pit that we use year round at the farm. Many things that we've done has been like drumming, telling stories around the campfire, roasting marshmallows, using that as a really nice communal gathering spot. And around the fire pit, there are native sugar maple trees that in the spring we tap for sugar water to eventually turn it into syrup. And we use the fire pit to help with that process. Like I mentioned before, the trail system that surrounds the farm, it's a beautiful space to just take a walk through and learn about the different fruiting trees and berries that happen throughout the year, and for you to explore as well. We also have an outdoor brick oven. Things that we've baked with it are bread, different treats, pizza. This year we had our pizza night at the farm, which was a huge success. And it's if ever you're interested in having a meal or creating a meal as part of your programming, this would be another facility that you can use at the farm. We have our outdoor brick oven, which is great for communal gathering, for your meetings, and to connect. It is shaded, but it does have a cover. So if it does rain, you'll still be protected, even though it's outdoors. We've in the past had dinners and brunches and barbecues, and even when we have our festivals, we've used that space as a platform for performances to happen. We also have beehives, and in partnership with our Toronto Beekeeper Collective, we sell and harvest organic honey on site. We're always looking for residents to be part of this collective to learn how to harvest their own harvest honey and ways to turn it into a value-added product after the honey has been harvested. So here you get a little glimpse of what it looks like. The bees are pretty docile. We haven't had major issues with the bees. So for those who are comfortable with critters and bees or anything like that, it's a great learning opportunity. We have our community gardens at the farm, and those spaces are used as a teaching space. Our community gardens consist of our farm school for children 12 and under. We have a youth garden. We have a seniors garden, and then we have community garden plots where residents who are who live in a neighborhood are able to receive a plot of land to grow their own crop. And then we support them by providing them with tools and resources and staff to support their growing. Whatever they grow belongs to them. So how we can support, if you do choose Black Creek Community Farm, I thought I'd make it simple by just sharing 3 main ways that we can offer some support through capacity, the space at the farm, and our outreach and communication. So with our capacity, depending on your needs and if the type of program that you're running or event that you're running, we can offer staff support and support with acquiring permits that are needed for specific events or programs. In terms of the space, we can provide a meeting space by the pavilion, assist you with hosting your workshops in those areas and in the different spaces at the farm. And if there's specific equipment that is needed that we do already have on site, we can help, we can support with that as well. And then I did hear earlier that you all will be receiving support when it comes to outreach. And we can also add to that by providing promotional material on our website, included in our monthly newsletters and on our website. So an example of past collaborations with Arts in the Park is with the AGYU. So we've recently partnered with them, and we had other partnerships as well, but I'll use this as an example where normally when people see the farm, they see it as a space of growing food and not much beyond that. But here we were able to host our annual farm festival. And as part of the farm festival, we had performances from local artists throughout the festival, showcasing their different talents from different genres of music, poetry, and I'm hoping for this year as well, we'll be able to have different forms of art highlighted at the farm, especially for a farm festival event. Another piece of it was we had a collaboration between our youth program and the AGYU, for example, create a permanent installation at the farm, turning one of our shipping containers into an art installation that is currently at the farm. So if ever you do come to visit, you can take a look at the work that they've done and turning, looking at their, turning their idea of what the farm means to them into a piece of art that will stay at the farm. And so here you can see the youth working on that mural. And I think the next slide is the finished product, which I think is pretty cool. And so again, reimagining how the arts can play in a setting like the farm, I think is a concept that I'm very open to exploring and excited to see what who would be interested in collaborating on that. And that's the end of my presentation. So for those who are interested in coming to the farm and seeing ways that we can collaborate, whether it's through programs and workshops or having different performances or shows or installations at the farm, definitely reach out and we can set up a site visit for those who are interested. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. Yeah, that was amazing. And I think, I mean, we did mention it before, but I wanted to reiterate the structure so that everybody understands how Black Creek Community Farm fits into this. So most of the parks that you will be able to choose from are City of Toronto parks managed by Parks, Forestry and Recreation. Black Creek Community Farm is the site that you can select instead of one of those parks. And that's basically, you know, it's the same idea that it's one of the designated sites available for you to choose, but it's not, obviously it's not a city park, it's a completely different process. And so when you, if your application is successful and you're fulfilling the grant conditions, one of which is a park permit, a fun thing that we will now learn about more from Natalie. So for Black Creek Community Farm, you will not be uploading park permit because that just doesn't apply. Instead, you will have an agreement with Black Creek Community Farm. And we have this year 36 city parks to choose from and Black Creek Community Farm. So 36 sites in total. And right now we're going to actually watch a video from Natalie, who unfortunately was not able to join us today, but recorded a video with everything that you need to know about that side of the program, permit and city park side of program before you apply. Actually, much of this information will be most relevant for those whose application will be successful. But I think it's useful to take a note of that now and get familiar with the process now so that you can really plan for your work, and you can really budget, not like money budget, but time budget, or like plan for, you know, for all the time that you will need to obtain the permit and go through the steps that are required specifically when you are planning to do a project in the city park. And with that, if we, if you, Cole, can please share the video, that would be great.
Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie, and I work with client services with the City of Toronto, Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Division. Part of my role with the city is to work with Animating Toronto Parks. I was very lucky to start last year, and I'm extremely excited to start another year of this amazing program. Part of my role is to be your city contact and to assist and move you through the park's permit process, as well as policies, procedures, bylaws, and to get your final permit. I would be the contact that you would send your completed application form and review your request. I would communicate with the park supervisor for approval of your request. And once we receive that approval and it's granted from the park supervisor, I would put together the letter of conditions that is sent to you outlining all the steps that are required to be completed before we issue your final permit. The permit process starts with the submission of the completed application. So I'm going to show you the steps. So please complete an application form, and once it's submitted to me, I will then review your application form, and please also include a site map indicating the locations of the park that you are requesting to activate and use. This is to indicate to the park supervisor where in the park you want to set up and provide them with all the details of your event so they know exactly what is being requested, and they can provide feedback and approval based on the information you have provided on this application. Once we receive your application, I review it and I send it to the park supervisor for approval and review. Once it's approved, we put together what our office calls the letter of conditions, and it's also referred to as a permit notice. And that is what shows the Toronto Arts Foundation that you have received approval from Parks, and your request has now moved on to conditional approval to move forward with your event. This letter indicates exactly what you need to do in order to receive the final permit. Please ensure you make sure that you read that letter and review all the requirements listed on the document, as these must be submitted to me directly and reviewed on the letter. And these documents must be submitted before we issue your final permit. So please, I can't emphasize enough, please review the letter and all required documents that are submitted. Once you review the letter, you'll be able to provide these requirements and adhere to the policy information that is listed on the letter. At this point, you should know you will be ready to be prepared for your special event and start date. Okay, so completing the special event application form. Application must outline in as much detail as possible what exactly your event consists of. So please include everything up front, and even if it is something that you're unsure if you will be including it into your event, please just include it anyways, as it's easier for us to approve all the information ahead of time, and we can always remove it if you no longer want to move forward with it as a component in your event. It's a lot easier to remove the request than to add it into your requirements later on. Some of the requirements have a longer processing time, and it is a lot harder to add additional aspects to the event after we receive approval for the initial request. Please ensure you include all the rain dates, rehearsal dates, or set up takedown dates into your application. If you have alternative dates, please also provide this as well. These dates and times need to be indicated on the application so we can avoid any conflicts that may arise within booking a park space, and we want to make sure these dates and times are secured for your event to avoid any conflicts. These dates are really important, and if they can be provided as early as possible so we can have these dates in place. Like I previously mentioned, please indicate exactly where you're going to be activating within the park on the site map. This includes the place in the park you're going to be having any installations, tents, structures, stages, inflatables. Please also include if they will be staked or pegged into the ground. Will the structure be freestanding? Will there be a stage? If there is a stage, will it be mobile? Or will it be built in the park? Please specify the dimensions of any installations you will be including. Are you going to be including any portable washrooms? If so, how many? Sound amplification. Will you have any amplified sound or performance of any kind? And please ensure you inform us of this. It can be live music, recorded music, live amplified music. What time will you have the sound amplification? Please indicate that as well on the application form. Will you also be requesting to use hydro? And if so, please indicate that. Or will you be providing a portable generator? Please make sure you mention that as well. Will you be having any food or drinks at your event? Having any vendors? What activities will you be having in the park? What type of activities are they, and what time will they be running? All aspects of the event you may also submit with the application, and if you need to attach an actual Word document to provide any additional details or schedules of the event, please feel free to do that. I know there is some space on the application, but it is pretty limited, so we will definitely accept an application, sitemap, and any additional documents with that application form. If you're having any ongoing performances and dates, please ensure you provide those as well. Okay, and this is going through some of the components that you may be including in your events. When you're looking to host an event in the park, and when you add in the components to your event, it may require additional steps through other divisions. And this slide shows an example of some things that you may want to include in your events, and then what some of the timelines that are required for that component. It is very important to read, again, the letter of conditions that is sent to you after we receive approval, because some of the requirements have a longer time frame. It can be an 8-week timeline to process these requests within the other divisions, as these are not put in place by Parks, Forestry, and Recreation. These are overseen by other divisions, such as municipal licensing and standards, or public health. And it is really important to have that paperwork submitted within their timeline that they require, because sometimes we as parks are unable to assist with pushing that timeline. So we need to make sure that we are abiding by the other divisions' timelines. And that means that we provide an overview of the component and the timeline and how long it takes. And if, for example, if you're going to have any installations of large tents or stages, you may be required to connect with building permits office, and this can take up to 8 weeks to have that approval. Public health can take up to 4 weeks for approval. Noise exemption requests and permits, they're usually up to 8 weeks for approval. So please ensure you read your letter so you can be within that processing timeline, as we do not want to remove any component because it's not done in time. And this lists all the items that may be listed on your letter, and including the information on the letter of who you need to contact and how you need to achieve that requirement. Once you receive that requirement, you would submit it to me directly. It also mentions the staking and pegging. That is definitely something that would take a longer time frame. So you must submit your locate request with Ontario One Call, and park staff will need to be required. This is a timely process, and we do not, again, want to remove any component due to it not being submitted in time. This is my contact information for you to contact me in the event that you have any questions. You are always welcome to contact me either by phone or email, and we can always discuss further. I'm also happy to set up a meeting in time to help assist you if you have any questions in regards to your letter of conditions and connecting with the other divisions. I'm always here. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I look forward to assisting with your events. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Wonderful. So this is it with the presentation portion of this session. So now we can head